or something like that. In order for these things to be fixed in stages, he was doing his body twitching and talking with Michael and doing his incantations all the time. So as things progressed now, he was getting into soul work. He was using a lot of Archangel Michael directed commands. He said he was receiving in downloads as well to his mind. He was showing me other people he worked with or knew of that had been amazingly healed or supernaturally. One of them was a doctor. I think his first name was Stephen, who this person died on earth in real life while climbing up a mountain or a hillside. And he actually ended up receiving a new heart from God and he was healed. That was the story I was told. And I cannot recall this man's last name, but this man, I watched him on YouTube. He's on YouTube somewhere. He is actually teaching in churches for real. I saw him teaching in churches. He's online teaching in churches, claiming that he is healing for others, but he's directed as a healer by Michael. And he was also arranging trips for other people to New Age places. But I cannot recall the exact names. At this same time, though, Brazil man seemed to be involved with this man or know about him in detail. So he was showing me, Brazil man was showing me other people on the internet at this point on YouTube that he would watch and study. And it seemed like he had connected with these people or was going to. He also, Brazil man, was also a channeler. Showed me another man, a channeler from Pleiades, who had many people watching his channel messages from the Pleiadians. I recall he was interested as well as I was interested in having me douse things like galaxies. For example, how many galaxies was there? And it was off the scale. It was uncountable number. I recall dowsing the number of universes we lived in, and there was a total of 7 of them. And I had doused that each universe level had a king and levels of authorities, and that each level had an acting god assigned as well at the top. A small g god. That's how it would be described as nowadays. At the top. Sort of like a pyramid chart of each level of universe. This kind of inquiring with familiar spirits makes humans' heads puffed up. You actually start to believe you are getting real answers, but I'm telling you people, it's garbage. Take it from me, I've been there. So anyways, it came to pass that apparently there was a problem happening in that there was an invasion at a level, and that news would come that someone in a high level of that universe would be like taken and kidnapped and have to be rescued by Brazil man. At this time, it was becoming apparent to me that, well, number one, my son was not being healed as the man said he would be, that he could help with, and things were happening in life that still put positions of great danger around him, around me, in positions where death or injury could happen at any day, any time. And I'm getting information from Brazil man that, for example, Archangel Michael is helping. So now my thoughts start moving to, well, then we need more angels covering him and watching him, because it was perplexing to me. Like, why is he still in situations of danger? Why is this danger still happening if everything's, moving in the right direction? So now I'm basically talking to God's angels via dowsing and so on. And now I'm starting to order God's angels around, telling them, go XXX, do this, watch over him for XXX hours or days type of things, via dowsing chart confirmations. This sounds really crazy, but I'm telling you guys, the supernatural realm is crazy. It's just simply crazy. And the truth of the matter is, he remained alive, but his life situations were not resolving, right? So now I'm shaking my head at this too when I think back, sitting there at the point of ordering God's angels around. Seriously, How much worse can this be? You might wonder, but you know what? It gets worse yet. And so because Brazil Man was coming to me often now to douse, even for himself, now to locate what was after himself. He felt there was things interfering with him now. He wanted to know what was it that was interfering with his ability, his energies, his seeing into things, and so on. So was it a vampire, another alien race? And if so, which race? Was it a witch? Was it Satan? Was it Lucifer? Many other things of the spiritual realms that can come at a person visually unseen. But a pendulum could locate, and he would feel like, he would feel like something was bothering him or blocking his energy or communications. And what was it? And could I clear it away for him? So I got into the habit of checking what was around him, because in my mind he was doing these great works for God. And he started to trust me to go to God with the pendulum to see what my response was, instead of him checking with Michael like he did in the beginning. Satan was now having his Akashic records cleared, apparently was put in like sanctification or something like that for cleansing and purifying. And after some time, wanted a chance at being forgiven to work in a top level position in the universe again and show himself right again. So he wanted a new name because the current angels, etc., recognized his old name and no one liked him or would trust him. So he wanted a new name assigned to him. He chose the name Top Dog to be renamed to. He apparently needed permission to be renamed, and Brazil Man would somehow liaise this with Michael and with the dowsing I was doing also to God to indicate a yes or a no for a final approval or not. Also, after he was supposedly approved to work in heaven again, in the universe, he was always coming and sitting on Brazil Man's presence. I could pick that up through dowsing. And so Brazil Man would communicate through his Michael and his body dowsing, a yes or a no on my side from things. So he wanted a chance to join Brazil Man, keeping the universe safe again. So Brazil Man, and apparently God, said yes, and he was given a trial run. On this trial run, he was to do good for others. And I believe he was also assigned to protect me, my family, just doing this automatically. I cannot recall exactly Brazil Man and how that went down. Either way, during this period of time, there were other events Brazil Man would tend to, like talking with people approaching him for forgiveness, for entry to heaven, or to bring him a gift of blessings even. He had familiar spirits talking to him all the time, of all types of old kings and queens stating their case. They would come and state their case, and they would leave their gift, so to speak, in honor of what he supposedly did for them, and for them to be at peace or advance or something like that. Around this time frame, Brazil Man introduced me to spiritual realm seals. So he explained his personal seal was basically a New Age triangle thing. It was with a crystal and a sort of shield on it, and that downloads and information could be transferred back and forth via the seal drops, so to speak. I didn't have such a thing, and he wanted to transfer energetic downloads, he said, to me, and I would need a seal to do this. So he worked his Reiki, and I think it was, or magic, I don't know what he did, but regardless, it was close to your eyes, and you would think about what picture is coming to your mind, or you would close your eyes. Yes, he said, close your eyes and tell me what picture is coming to your mind. And I had two pictures in the spiritual realm. So the first image appeared. It was the Star of Bethlehem, the Star of David, and the second was a white feather, like you would see on a writing feather pen. So that was my spiritual realm objects and seals, which is supposed to be for me. So which, while writing this testimony up, Holy Spirit told me these are actually called talismans. So also around this time, Brazil man was able to teleport to my sleep. He was able to visit me in my sleep, and I would be able to see a black bat-shaped body with wide wings like you would see on a Halloween drawing. However, the head of the bat body was his human physical head and hair. I could tell when he was teleporting to check on me because I could see him across my eyesight. He confirmed yes, he was checking on me. When I asked him about it, I said, "Oh, I noticed you visited me last night." And he would say, "Yes, I did." So now came the last project from Brazil Man, which was to work on the largest worldwide issues and to find a harmless way to sort of disarm any harm. So he was like used to deflecting universal catastrophes, apparently. So there was much in depth looking into after all the lost souls that had been saved and recovered and that were stolen out of people's bodies. And since Satan was on the good level now, so to speak, what else could be done to make things better in the world? While he would do various meetings with his own people in Brazil on things, he would connect still with me to work on a final project to restore order to the universal wallets, he said, were planted in various teleportings or mothership trips to these universes, etc. There were things also being run in hidden areas of the universal levels, armies of fallen angels who were duping the humans into believing they would receive a huge payoff or reward or prize at the end for their work and efforts. However, the humans did not know that they were being lied to and that they were performing these works around the world. And instead, the fallen angels, they were actually planning to do away with these puppet humans after using them for their purposes. So now enters the education from Brazil Man on the spirit world of these fallen angels using humans as puppets. Fragments and fractals, word terms of human beings were used, which have no biblical truth. If you look in the Bible, you're not going to find those words. So that could be taken down, he said, to the smallest particle. When you get it down to the smallest particle, then these could start rebuilding themselves back up again. Clones, copies of humans, and crystal universe computers also he spoke of. There were also crews of evil working against good and causing destruction on earth, and Brazil Man would ask for their names to be spelled out, dowsing the names. And sometimes it was like a father's son or son and an uncle that Brazil Man had to go and apparently subdue for the universe's safety. At first he would talk about recycling them, but that was the last option. All attempts to rehabilitate would be made first before something went to the trash. Recycling was like the final trash bin, and their soul was gone forever, and no more chances to change after that. So there were sets of these spiritual troublemakers, and he would designate spots about the earth where they would be dealt with for rehabilitation. The first was what he called the tar pits. So you see instead of the pit or abyss the Bible talks about, he used the term tar pits. He explained they would be buried up to their necks in a tar pit and unable to move and remain there until they were changed and usable again. When these would be done, they would get out and be found again later to be up to no good, though. So next came Brazil Man's more secure spots, where surely they would not escape. Sort of like exiled tropical beach places with a fire pit, but nowhere to go. So the repeat offenders would be transported with like spiritual military universal guides to places of designated confinement until they were refined for good use again. It happened that they started somehow escaping these places as well after some time. And the way it was known, they broke out through dowsing. So he would say, something's not right. Can you check what's causing the trouble? So in spelling out a name, it would be one of these names. So it was known that they escaped refinement. And so Brazil man would go catch them again and give them more chances, etc. But they would keep breaking out, causing problems. So Brazil man, you see, throughout everything was always playing the good guy. So after his tropical spots were not secure enough and more issues were occurring that were said to be caused by the same spirits or individuals, which, they were individuals in spirits, the reality of it. His question, well, where would you suggest we take them next? So I said, well, how about off the earth then somewhere? Because recall he could teleport to places and take spirits with him. So it ended up being the sun and the moon locations next. Surely they could not get back to earth and cause more trouble on earth. Well, jails were placed on the sun and moon, and they were guarded and held in jails, and there was flights going there from time to time, and some ended up breaking out of a jail there and hijacked a spaceship and tried coming back to earth again. I think they got stopped by Brazil man, he said, who sent more guards in the universe to overcome them. While this is all taking place, what comes next? Yes, there's more, but this is what occurred. This is the truth of what occurred. So now there was a lot of dowsing going on, the various universal levels, etc. It was determined there were 7 universes like a pyramid. There was a small G god in training at the top of each level, and there was a king positioned underneath each god at each level, and a temporary king in case a king had to be replaced. Another would step in. Now comes issues of somehow the temporary god from like level 4 goes missing. Also remember that Satan, who is now supposedly a good guy, remember he has his new name, Top Dog, given to him, comes onto the scene to help the issues. While this was going on, a family member of mine was indicated being made a king and then being removed and bumped, etc. by replacement kings, and dowsing indicates he's in trouble. And within hours that evening, this family member actually showed up for real in person at my personal residence. And I wasn't expecting him, and he just showed up out of the blue. And he was wearing a dressy black suit coat. Not normal for him to wear a suit coat. Matter of fact, it might even be the first time I ever seen him wear a suit coat. And jeans. And he proceeded to, be sort of proud of his suit coat and show me his suit coat. And he's like, see, look. And he's showing me the pockets, and he sort of opens up the breastplate lapel part open, and inside of it, on the inside of it, was a gold crown emblem with the word king engraved on the inside lining. This is for real. This person leaves my residence, and dowsing indicates he is still in trouble. And he's in trouble of dying of suicide and doesn't want to stay on earth and wants to go to heaven. And what did I think of that? So, without truly physically knowing what's really going on with him and just depending on the dowsing, Nowadays, I know I was dowsing through familiar spirits, but I didn't know that then. So anyway, in this dowsing, it's the indication comes he's ended up in heaven and he's with Jesus. And he is truly happy, and they are enjoying doing things together. Even at one point, dowsing ended because they had to go. They were going to grab a pizza together, indicating heaven would have things like pizza and restaurants. Brazil man, whenever he would meet up to accomplish an energy mission, would seriously, physically ramp up his mind. Like you could see him trying to energize his mind, etc., to be ready to complete jobs. And remember, he said this was all work for God he does. So he would get physically tired, like he would tire himself right out from building up energy. And after, say, an hour, he was exhausted and would have to quit for the day. Hence, another meeting to finish whatever another time. Well, it turns out the universe level temporary God disappearing issue went up to the 6th level. So you see, the top 7th level was basically represented as Father God himself. So each time God was kidnapped, he was located and returned. Then the next level temporary God went missing. So finally come the news that the 7th level God is missing now. Someone has him, and this is where Brazil man just gave up. Exhausted. He gave up and said he could do no more. So this is where my thoughts lost it. Because I was thinking like, well, what do you mean you can't finish this? You're the one with all the energy. And what? You're going to give up on getting God back? And so because Top Dog was supposedly workable now, it was okay to call Top Dog in, and he was on the good side. It was okay to call Top Dog in to help restore God somehow via me and dowsing to finish the mission. So Brazil man just sat there in his chair, basically like deflated, with his eyes looking like he was just stuck in a trance or hypnosis, unable to move or do anything. And when I realized he was going to do nothing to get our God back, I took over with Top Dog via dowsing communication to restore God to the 7th level. And somehow this was done. All indicated through dowsing, yes, that he was restored. He was back in charge at the helm of everything again. So afterward, with Top Dog helping out and helping things and restore, now other sets of attacks start coming onto Brazil man, and he would have me douse how many curses, which generations was affecting him, and he had enchantment ways to break each of these scenarios. And they would actually go after his personal family as well. So he would break something off himself, and then it would replicate via a wizard or a magician who had sort of like copies of these spells. So replicatable spells. These spells would replicate next to his father, mother, and sister or family members. And they all had to be broken off per each individual as well. These spells, however, not only spilled onto him and his family, they actually started to now affect me as well. And my heart would start to race to a severe fast heartbeat. And I knew something was happening. It was wrong, not normal. So I would seek out in dowsing, what was it now? Back to listing what the spells were from. And there were numerous ones, and refine it down to exactly how many spells, then recheck if they were broken and gone, and then finally check for duplicate spells that were auto-programmed to roll onto your family members. When a major one ended up broken, then a backup spell placed by the wizard or the sorcerer came next. And so now that had to be ended as well. This got so exhausting. Brazil man would always message me as if something was wrong. He felt something was wrong, and he would respond that he would help with his energetics, like he was like 100-fold versus my energy levels. He seemed to become more and more disinterested now in communication overall after God at the 7th level was restored on this whole mission stuff. So around this time as well, I was also a very curious person and had learned more online about Brazil man's original question about, did I hear the name Yeshua or Yahweh? And started to know from Google that that related to Jesus. And so I was curious about Jesus now. And I'm dowsing information now about Jesus. What was his birthday? What time was he born? How much did he weigh when he was born? Anything that had to do with a number, any question I dowsed and asked came back with full 7s each and every time. I even dowsed about other information about Mary, like what was her maiden name? What was her birth family's real name? All of that information I had written down on notes in a book I kept. And I shared that information with Brazil man eventually. You see, I thought he was this supernatural sort of big hired gun fella working for God, training to take over for God of the universe. So he needed to see this information. So after Jesus, though, rescued me, I ended up burning all that paperwork, all those notes and information that had anything to do with Brazil man. Any data I had written down or recorded or kept was all deleted or burnt. All when these things became revealed to me later, that's what I did with all the information. I have none of the original information. In this time frame of Brazil man, now comes a dream, a vision from God. And he says to me, bring me the children. He didn't say to give the message to anyone else in this dream or vision. So not having had this happen to me before, not knowing that God sends dreams and visions and so on to his children, to me, this was a very clear, direct command, an assignment. So at the time, I actually thought, well, that can't be meant for me. Why would he be saying that to me? And because remember, I had been working with Brazil man, and Brazil man was supposed to be the designated liaison man with Archangel Michael. So I thought, well, why would I be getting this assignment or this command? And I started to think, well, maybe it wasn't for me. Maybe it was for Brazil man. I started wondering, well, and so I was very confused as to why I got the message when Brazil man was supposed to be the big man. Anyways, so the next day I told Brazil man about the message God told me about. I said, it must be a message intended for you. He never confirmed anything or spoke about it again after I mentioned it. He just it went by the wayside. I finally realized when I became born again and familiar with God's Rhema that the command or the assignment, indeed, yes, it was for me. And it wasn't meant for anyone else. Plus, he never said it was for anyone else. The dream never said, go tell, whoever, whatever, this is for someone else. It was direct to me. Things were ramping up now with spells and bad things increasing, happening to my son now. And I was getting very frustrated being under enchantments, under spells. And they were being cast at me fast and furious as well as me needing to break the next spells that Brazil man had taught me how to break. This ended up going into thousands of spells and was taking hours at a time to break them all. Then, not much time later, something would start up again, sometimes within a matter of hours, and then here we go again. So this was running me absolutely into the ground. So while dowsing still for more information about my past history, my family history, I was coming up with information that was pointing me now to Mother Earth. And this is in the dowsing. and it related to Mother Earth in the spiritual realm, and that it meant I was the female connection to God, the female partner or side, so to speak, which put me on to seeking information in the Gnostic records. So that's next where I located information about Sophia. And further information took me to Sophia channelers. And I learned about Sophia, the female wisdom of God, in an overall sense in the Gnostic library's information. So now, in having this distorted view, I dowsed more things about me and the connection, and then it seemed to point to the dowsing would point, oh, you're a mother of Mother Earth and all that nonsense. In the next meeting with Brazil Man, I was going to talk about this sort of connection that was made, the information I had dowsed and connected, and how that meant I was sort of one with God at that point in a motherly fashion. It was at this point I was sitting during the meeting facing Brazil Man on the opposite side, and I got an overwhelming warming and knowing that came over me that I loved God with all I had, without a doubt. It was like a waterfall of warm love just poured over you and continuously ran and enveloped me. So recall that originally, Brazil Man, he introduced himself as the son of Yahweh, and he was in training, and that I thought this man was either God come in disguise or a part of God somehow, with no Bible experience yet, right? So while I am watching him talk about just in general stuff sitting on his chair, I am looking straight at him while he's sitting on his chair, thinking he, and I'm thinking, a part of God, doesn't have a clue that I am completely in love with God. And when that thought realized in my mind, this man sitting in the chair immediately flew backwards, like being knocked back and then sideways to the ground off his chair unexpectedly. He was not expecting that force and almost fell right off his chair. I think he actually had to put his hand on the ground to steady himself, or out to steady himself. It coincided exactly when I had that complete realization come over me, how much I just was so in love with God. Like so in love with God. I was in love with something here present. I wasn't sure if it was him. I didn't think it was the human, but it was God, right? Like I did know it was God. In my mind, it was God. And so in my mind, and now I'm not laughing out loud, but I'm laughing in my mind, thinking to myself, he doesn't know what just hit him. He doesn't have a clue what just hit him. Meaning my love for God actually just hit this person. So he very quickly ended the meeting looking pretty uncomfortable after that. So now my mind moves on daily, stuck on love for God. And my mind is starting to shift into this I want to marry God scenario, because remember, I was dowsing, right? Remember, and I was asking God questions, and I asked him if he was ever married, and I was thinking, well, with God, anything is possible. I want to marry God too, right? And so anyways, so I'm dowsing again at this time, still for answers, right? And somehow I'm getting this indication coming back through dowsing that, oh, I am part of Mother Earth. So more divination is done, and talking to the familiar spirits. And now I'm contacting several familiar spirits, and there's marriage enchantments now occurring between me and God in the divination realm, though, but not in person, face to face with this Brazil man. No, So it's all orchestrated by familiar spirits. And the dowsing information is relaying marriage vows and related information to God. So next comes dowsing instructions saying, tell Brazil man to go to a certain cemetery where he lived and to dig up a certain headstone, and that he should, I believe it was, take his and my photos with him, and he should bury them there underneath the headstone. And then he should come to my city, something like that. I can't remember exactly all of it, but it was a scenario like that. So the next online meeting that comes up face to face with Brazil man, I'm wondering about, what will we talk about in this meeting? Out of the blue, matter of factly and abruptly, he announces, and I was going to talk about this instruction about, I think I was going to bring up and talk about this instruction about these headstones and all that topic. Instead, he kind of cuts me off. He abruptly announces, I have been informed that you are dismissed and will never work again for God. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. I was like, what? I wasn't expecting this. Now I can laugh about it. I can giggle about it because it's absolutely ridiculous. But at the time, I was stunned. I thought there was all this universal work yet to be done and, all these crazy things. So for me, because I thought he was like God or part of God or God's son in training or part of Gabriel or whatever was going on there, Michael, Archangel Michael, as he advised way back when I first met him, right? Anyways, I was crushed, literally crushed and broken by his, I have been informed that you are dismissed and will never work again for God. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. Like, what a dismissal. What a severe and abrupt dismissal. Nowadays, I know, God's not like that. God is a God of love, and he's not like that. If we're a believer in God and we ask for an assignment from God, Holy Spirit trains us up and educates us, and on we go, right? And it's not like that, not like that. But I didn't know that then at the time. Okay, I just couldn't understand that if God was involved in all of that, then what was it I did so wrong that I'm like dismissed all of a sudden? And why did he abruptly, basically fire me after he got knocked off his chair? So that's what it felt like to me, right? It felt like I was getting fired for knocking this fella off his chair, because that's when everything really came to a head, right? So I was lost as far as speaking with Brazil man. I was lost. I was really upset about this, actually. I was crying night and day for pretty much months ongoing. I was sobbing my eyes out to God, saying, now I'm going to God, right, at night, and I'm saying, he said I will never have another job for God or work for God again. And I'm crying to God, why? In my heart, in my heart, I wanted to work for God still, because remember, I thought I was working for God all that time. And I thought this was the end and God was not going to give me another chance. I actually really came to believe that God wasn't going to give me another job, not going to give me another chance to do anything. And I'm wanting to know why he said that, why this man said that. And I kept thinking, what do you mean I will never work for God again? And I could not imagine being, not being a part of God or, doing another job or a job for God again. So what do I do? Well, back to what I knew what to do, right? So there I go back to dowsing to find answers of what was going on. That was a big mistake, but I didn't know it then. So around that time frame, a couple of things happened. I was hit with heavy spells now and thought I may even have a heart attack. I also recall an event where I had asked my mother's friend that I talked with from time to time, I asked my mother's friend, I said, did you want me to douse her family member for her? She had a family member that passed away. And I said, do you want to try and communicate with this person? So she says to me, let me get back to you, or something like that. And so now in this time frame, the spells that I'm experiencing are really fast and furious coming now. I'm dowsing direct with Sophia, remember, who is in the Gnosticism, Library of Gnostics and Gnosticism. She is the female wisdom of God. And I'm getting answers from her about what was going on. And I asked her many questions about things as well through dowsing. Well, one piece of advice that came back that I still actually use to this day was, strangely enough, it was something accurate, because I asked through dowsing, I said, what is the best piece of wisdom or advice in the world you can give me? Remember, because, to me, I'm talking to Sophia, like the wisdom of God, right? What came back from the familiar spirit was the pendulum spelled out, go get God. That was the first thing. And there was another one that came back, a piece of advice that said, never work alone. These two pieces of advice actually became critical later on, because I actually learned to go get Jesus and to work with Jesus. So I learned, go get those words. The substitutes became go get Jesus and work with Jesus. So to me, those were two good pieces of advice. I don't know if that was a familiar spirit telling me that, or if it was an angel intervening or God intervening. I don't know. But from then on, I learned, never work alone. I always need my Jesus to work with me. And if there's something going on, go get God. And then I learned, that I go get God any time now. It doesn't matter when it is. So that's my first go-to is Jesus now, right? My friend and my beloved, and, he's always there for me, faithful and true, every time. So those two phrases stuck like cement in my mind. And I remember at that time I was thinking, how can I go get God if God fired me and I will never work with him or see him again? So in my notes that I keep, I next wrote down on January